In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Redwood Estates, life moved slowly and predictably. Rows of neatly kept lawns and two-story homes gave the area a postcard-perfect feel, where everyone knew their neighbors by name and gossip spread faster than the wind that rustled through the oak trees lining the streets. Michael Carter was a man who embodied stability. In his mid-40s, he was successful, reliable, and trusted by everyone who knew him. He had worked for over 2 decades at Thompson Engineering, a growing construction company, starting from an entry-level position and climbing his way up to a respected project manager. With his reputation for honesty and hard work, he was considered an indispensable part of the company's success. His wife, Anna, was the polar opposite in some ways, charismatic, bold, and hungry for excitement. The two had been married for 15 years, and while their relationship had its ups and downs, Michael was committed to his marriage. He had never questioned Anna's loyalty, despite the occasional whispers in town. Anna, however, had grown tired of the predictable life that Michael had so carefully built. The home they shared, a beautiful colonial-style house with white shutters and a large porch, had once been her dream. But over time, it began to feel like a prison. The days of romantic dinners and spontaneous trips were long gone, replaced by routine and conversations about bills and responsibilities. Michael, preoccupied with his career, didn't notice the change in his wife's demeanor. He trusted her completely, never suspecting that her restlessness would lead her down a dangerous path. Then came Daniel Thompson, the charismatic CEO of Thompson Engineering. Tall, handsome, and wealthy beyond imagination, Daniel was everything Michael wasn't, at least in Anna's eyes. Where Michael was steady and hard-working, Daniel was spontaneous, adventurous, and exuded confidence. He lived in a sprawling estate on the outskirts of town, a sharp contrast to the modest, comfortable life that Anna and Michael shared. To Anna, Daniel represented freedom, wealth, and excitement, everything she felt she was missing. It started innocently enough. Daniel and Anna first met at a company holiday party, a lavish event that Michael had eagerly invited his wife to attend. The party was held at a grand ballroom in the city, with chandeliers casting a warm glow over the elegant decor. Michael introduced Anna to Daniel with pride, unaware of the spark that ignited between them. Daniel, ever the charmer, complimented Anna on her beauty, his eyes lingering on her a bit too long. Anna, flattered by the attention, laughed and blushed, her gaze returning his. In the weeks that followed, Daniel began reaching out to Anna. It started with casual texts, innocuous compliments about how she had looked that night, or witty comments about the party. Soon, their exchanges became more frequent and more personal. Daniel knew exactly what to say to make Anna feel special, and she reveled in the attention. What began as harmless flirting quickly escalated into an affair. Anna told herself she deserved this. After all, hadn't she sacrificed enough? She had given up her career to support Michael, had settled for a life that no longer thrilled her. Being with Daniel made her feel alive again, like the vibrant woman she had been before her marriage had turned into a routine. She justified the betrayal by convincing herself that Michael would never find out. But as the affair deepened, her guilt was replaced by something else, a hunger for more. Anna wasn't just falling for Daniel. She was falling for the life he represented, the wealth, the power, the influence. Everything that Michael, with all his hard work, could never provide. And slowly, a plan began to form in her mind. What if she could leave Michael and start fresh with Daniel? More than that, what if she could take everything that Michael had worked for with her? As their affair grew more intense, Daniel began to feed Anna's ambitions. He would tell her how much potential she had, how she deserved more than the modest life Michael had given her. "You're a woman who could have it all," Daniel would whisper in her ear, his hand resting on her thigh during their secretive rendezvous at his luxurious estate. He told her that if she played her cards right, she could have the house, the money, everything. Michael was too trusting, too naive to see what was coming. The plan was simple, or so it seemed. Anna would convince Michael that their marriage was over. But instead of a clean break, she would demand everything: their home, his savings, even a share of his retirement. She knew Michael would never fight back. He was too decent, too loyal to turn ugly in a divorce. He would want to settle things peacefully, for her sake, and once the divorce was final, she would be free to be with Daniel, living the life she had always dreamed of. But as with most carefully laid plans, things didn't go as smoothly as Anna had hoped. Michael had begun to notice changes in his wife. At first it was subtle. She was more distant, less engaged in their conversations. She started staying out late, claiming she was visiting friends or taking time for herself. But then he noticed the phone calls that ended abruptly when he entered the room. The text messages she would quickly hide. He tried to ignore the signs, telling himself that it was just a rough patch, that every marriage went through phases like this. One evening, after another long day at work, Michael came home to an empty house. Anna hadn't left a note, hadn't answered his calls. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the phone, his gut telling him something was very wrong. Hours passed, and still there was no word from her. Finally, around midnight, Anna walked through the door, her face flushed and her eyes bright with a mix of excitement and guilt. "Where have you been?" Michael asked, his voice calm but laced with concern. "I was with a friend," she replied, too quickly. She wouldn't meet his gaze. Michael stood up, walking toward her slowly. "Anna, what's going on? You've been distant, secretive. I can't help but feel like something's wrong." Anna felt her chest tighten. This was the moment she had dreaded. She had planned to tell him, to start the process of leaving. But now, standing in front of him, she felt a flicker of guilt. Michael had always been good to her. Too good, in fact. He didn't deserve this. But the thought of the life she could have with Daniel pushed the guilt aside. "I don't love you anymore," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I want a divorce." Michael stood there, stunned. He had known things weren't perfect, but he had never imagined it would come to this. "A divorce? Anna, we can work through this. We've been together for 15 years. We can't just throw that away." But Anna was resolute. She had already convinced herself that this was the only way forward. "It's too late, Michael. I've already made up my mind." As the days passed, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Anna moved out of their home and into a small apartment in the city. But her plans to take everything from Michael were already in motion. Her lawyer sent over a list of demands that made Michael's head spin. She wanted the house, half of his savings, and a large portion of his retirement fund. It was an outrageous request. But Michael, still reeling from the shock of the divorce, couldn't bring himself to fight back. The situation took a turn when Michael discovered the affair. One evening, while packing up Anna's things from the house, he found a note tucked away in one of her drawers. A love letter from Daniel Thompson. The words on the page made Michael's blood run cold. Not only had Anna betrayed him, but she had done so with the man who signed his paychecks. Fueled by anger and betrayal, Michael hired a private investigator. Within weeks, the investigator provided him with undeniable evidence of the affair: photos, text messages, even financial records showing that Daniel had been funding Anna's new lifestyle. Armed with this information, Michael took a stand. The divorce proceedings, once amicable, turned ugly. Michael refused to give Anna anything more than the bare minimum. His lawyer used the affair as leverage, and soon Anna found herself on the losing end of the legal battle. Daniel, sensing the potential scandal, distanced himself from the situation, leaving Anna to fend for herself.